Let the meltdown begin. MMA Meltdown on the Fight Network. I am Gabriel Morency. Let's do this thing. Not so sweet style as Charmaine, not so sweet. Tweet will step up and join us in a couple of moments' time from Houston, Texas. It's Invicta FC 10 this Friday. Little appetizer to get you ready for UFC 181. And speaking of the UFC, a great job by the UFC Fight Pass picking up Invicta. So for all you Fight Pass subscribers out there, you'll be able to watch the Invicta fight card from Houston, Texas this Friday night. And Invicta's good stuff, but it's hard for people to see. They tried to stream it on their own. They've done the Ustream thing. They've tried a different, different levels and different platforms. I don't understand why they can't get a solid TV deal, because it's a solid organization and a solid company, but they just did get a solid deal with the UFC. Nothing wrong with being on a UFC Fight Pass. Charmaine Tweet's going to join us. Speaking of the UFC, it's UFC 181, and man, we got some great fights on tap here. At the top of the hill, some pretty good stuff. The prelims, solid, some workman-like type of guys. There should be some entertaining fights on the card, but it doesn't get much better than Johnny Hendricks and Robbie Lawler. It doesn't get much better than Anthony Pettis and Gilbert Melendez. Duffman, oh yeah, Duffman. Todd Duffy returns to the UFC's octagon once again. So a ton of stuff to get to. Without further ado, normally Joey joins us later in the program, but we got a ton of stuff that we want to get to with Joey. Steps up and in right now. Joey Oddessa, it's always a pleasure, the premier combat sport odds maker in the business. What's up, Joey?
What's happening, G? And let me just add that Invicta is on the Global Fight Pass UFC network. I guess that's what you would call it. It's available widely through Central and South America. So people that are getting it on the internet in the States, we actually get it in high definition TV down here. So Invicta is being seen globally, which should help, I would think, in a big way, because you got a lot of those Russian boxers, female boxers, kickboxers, Netherlands, things like that. And if it's available in Central America, I'm sure it's available in, other markets outside the United States. So they're going to get some exposure. And after 2016 in the Olympics, I mean, God knows where this is going to end up. I mean, the women's MMA, I think, is picking up. They always put in an honest fight. They might not be making the money the guys are making in the UFC, but, everybody's got to start somewhere.
And it's interesting that you say that, Joe, because a lot of people talk about the WWE network and say, well, how come the UFC doesn't do something similar? All we get is the Fight Pass. We're not getting pay-per-views. But as you just stated, you've told me in the past, you get the pay-per-views. You get everything, right? It's like 24/7, and you get everything, but it's on TV. And I think they're working out the kinks, as you stated, in Central America and Latin America and overseas, and eventually they won't have a choice. That's going to be the future of North American UFC television, I would imagine, as well, Joey.
It's awesome, and it's reasonably priced, and you get the pay-per-views. I mean, it is in Spanish, but I mean, outside of Joe Rogan, I don't,
What are you paying for that? What are you paying for that? I know your wife probably handles the bills and stuff, but what is it? It's like $10 a month only or something, right?
Yeah, it might be about $20 a month or something. I really don't know, but it's worth every penny. I mean, it gets all the Ultimate Fighter shows and stuff. I mean, I'm giving the UFC a great plug here for it.
I know.
Everything right up to date.
Makes up for all the criticism I've done, Joey. Dana's going to be like, what's up with Morency today? He's ultra positive. Great deal. Great deal up there. And hey, we've got a great card in Las Vegas this week as well, Joey. We've got Johnny Hendricks. We got the rematch against Robbie Lawler. Hendricks' first title defense. He was up to about a minus 400 favorite. I think it was closed at about 350 in the last fight. So basically, Johnny Hendricks is half as high as a favorite as he was in the first fight. He's been off for 265 days. I think that's a good thing with Johnny. And you can respect this because you are a wrestler, Joey. Johnny Hendricks, being the All-American that he was at Oklahoma State, he beat the crap out of his body, man. Hundreds of wrestling matches a year for multiple years, all the practice, and then into MMA, the emotional, draining war that he went through with George St. Pierre. He was obsessed with George St. Pierre. I think it mentally drained him. I think a year off, would do Johnny a lot of good, and I think we're going to see a fresh Johnny Hendricks, not a rusty Johnny Hendricks.
Yeah, I mean, Robbie's had 2 fights since the Hendricks fight, and sometimes that works for you, sometimes it works against you. We see these guys, like Cowboy goes on those long runs and then has a downfall, and some guys can do it, some guys can't. Lawler seems to be catching a second wind here. It's going to be a good fight. I hope Johnny, I like Johnny. I hope Johnny takes him down. Last time he didn't take him down as much as he stood with him, which puts him in, jeopardy because Lawler, I mean, hell, he's knocked out 19 of his 24 wins have come by knockout. So Johnny's got to, he's got to be careful he doesn't get chin checked in this fight.
That's always the danger, isn't it? And, they don't call him ruthless Robbie Lawler for nothing, obviously. He showed he could take the shot last time. I'd like to see, and, I'm not a coach, but I'd like to see Johnny use his wrestling a little bit more here, just to, to sort of, not just to win the rounds. Like, Johnny used his wrestling in the last fight to try to get takedowns late in the rounds, just to try to sort of secure the round. But Joey, if he would, go for the takedowns a little bit more and succeed, he'd take less damage as well. It's not so much to get points with the judges. You also take less damage, man, when you're on top.
Jared Roshold would vouch for that. I mean,
yeah, no kidding.
Hindsight, why didn't he, he had him hurt on his feet. Oh, yeah, hindsight again, and I don't want to Monday morning quarterback it, but he probably should have just took him down instead of standing there swinging for the fences.
Robbie has sort of reinvented himself, Joe. You and I have often talked about the mental maturity of fighters when they get into their 30s and they get that second wind, or, their second life, so to speak. It's like their career's rejuvenated. So Lawler's 32 years old. He's won 5 of his last 6 fights. The only loss coming against Johnny Hendricks. Kind of playing with house money. You can make an argument who has more pressure coming on here. I guess Johnny does because he makes more money. He's the champion. But at the same point in time, Robbie Lawler's not going to be getting another title shot for a long time if he doesn't win this fight, if ever.
No, but I think he's got to be happy. I mean, he's been fighting since 2001. He's got a 6-year head start on Johnny. I mean, it was a hell of a prodigy back in, UFC 37 he fought in. I mean, we're up to, 181? Johnny started out, didn't start fighting until, I think, 2007, 2008. Didn't make his UFC appearance till 2009 after a brief stint in the WEC. Lawler's been around a while. I think he's pretty grateful for what the UFC's offered him, the second opportunity to come back, and now he's kind of just riding a wave. And, there's new news of the Reebok contracts and things like that and incentives. If Robbie Lawler wins his fight, he's going to move up in the rankings significantly. It's going to mean more money. I mean, he's got everything to gain from this fight, and he really doesn't have a lot to lose because you look back, I mean, we're looking way back at his record. He does, he's got losses to, he's lost to Nick Diaz, Evan Tanner, I mean, all names, Sobral, Kennedy beat him, but then he went on that run starting with Koscheck, and his only loss since then has been to Johnny Hendricks, who's the champ right now, now that George St. Pierre's not there, and arguably Johnny and George St. Pierre, if they fight again with George St. Pierre's layoff, I think the layoff might have helped Johnny more than it helped George St. Pierre.
Joey Oddessa with us. Joey, only got a couple of minutes left. Pettis and Melendez. So Pettis a minus 250 favorite. He's been off since August the 31st, 2013. I'm not concerned about the ring rust with Johnny Hendricks because I know how hard this guy has worked over the years, and, he's coming off the wars with Lawler and GSP. I wonder about Pettis, man. The guy's doing, shoe commercials and TV work, and I don't see, when is he in the gym? I know he's ready, but you know what I'm saying? I mean, he's been living the life of a champion without ever defending the belt before. Gil, also 32 years old, similar to Robbie, sort of in a must-win situation. Can Gil bully Pettis? Pettis is so fast, Joey. I want to take Melendez here, but I don't know if it's just my heart. I don't know, if it's the right pick.
Yeah, I'm not running out to lay the number on Pettis. There's been a lot of drama around the gym lately. It works both ways. We saw Ortiz get beat. We saw Camus, who has been kicked out, come back. And
Pettis, co-owner of Duke Rufus Gym. Exactly. Co-owner of Duke Rufus Gym. The big controversy recently with the death in the gym. It's got to be a distraction a little bit, or at least it had to have been.
Yeah, and, Gil's waited for this opportunity for a long time. He lost a split decision to Benson. Pettis got the win over Benson. Benson, I don't think he's the same fighter since he got married, but, who knows what goes on there. Some guys just, they get different, when they're single, single to marriage. Marriage can do, odd things to a guy, make him, put his priorities in order, and, maybe, that fighting might not be his number one priority now, which you can't blame the guy. Families, should always come first.
So we got 1 minute. Joey, you're taking Gil?
I like Gil, yeah.
Taking a shot with Gil. I'm taking Hendricks. And, you know, there's 7 conference championship football games on Saturday. I think Johnny Hendricks minus 200 might be parlayed with a college football money line play later in that night, actually, Joey. So look at this card. There's some tricky fights. You know, we only have 30 seconds here. Schaub and Brown. I like Brown in that fight over Schaub. And Todd Duffy returns. You think, does Hamilton have a shot here against Duffy? What do you make of this one?
I think anybody's got a shot against Duffy if they can land on him. Duffy's supposed to be over at AKA working out, but again, is he the guy that's getting hit? Is he the guy that's not getting hit? 2 things real quick before we close out, Gabe. You know, rest in peace to that Ohio State wrestler, football player, heavyweight, who just recently passed.
Yeah.
You know, concussions. I don't know what the story behind it is until they do the autopsy. And
I didn't know he was a wrestler.
Mickey Rourke.
I didn't know he was a wrestler as well, Joey. I didn't.
Yes, he was.
I didn't realize
he was a heavyweight wrestler, 3-time starter. You know, he was a walk-on the football team. Really good guy by all accounts. Had some concussion problems and was really suffering. And you know, God bless him and the people that loved him. And Mickey Rourke has taken a lot of criticism. Took a homeless guy off the street that used to train at Wild Card, took him to Russia. It was an exhibition. You know, let it go. It wasn't like people were betting on it. It wasn't like it was a quote unquote fixed fight. It was no different than Zimmerman versus the kid.
What, Trayvon Martin?
Oh, geez. Yeah, you know, for DMX. I mean, it was a celebrity bout. Okay, that's all it was. Get off it. The homeless guy made some money.
No, exactly, exactly. People are freaking out. Like, you know, the homeless guy was happy. Elliot, Seymour was happy to get the money, and yeah, we got to get out of here, Joe. We're out of time here. I'm sorry. We got to wrap it up. We're gonna come back to our videos in a week. And you want more Oddessa, Sirius XM channel 167 Tuesday nights at 10 o'clock.